That was the night it all began, back in 2007, when adoption papers felt like a lifeline and hope was still something we could touch. Gary and I had met in the sticky heat of a New York summer, back when we were both wide-eyed kids chasing dreams in the city that never sleeps. I was a barista in a Greenwich Village cafe, slinging lattes to aspiring artists and burnout stockbrokers, dreaming of writing the great American novel that would make my conservative Indiana family finally see me. Gary was the graphic designer who wandered in one rainy afternoon, his sketchbook soaked, ordering a black coffee with a smile that lit up the gloom like a goddamn firework. "You look like you could use a story," he'd said, sliding onto a stool and doodling my face on a napkin before I could even ask his name. We fell hard and fast, the way you do when you're 25 and the world feels conquerable. Late nights in his cramped Brooklyn walk-up, tangled in sheets that smelled like takeout Thai and fresh ink, whispering about futures we both knew our families would never understand. Mine had disowned me the day I came out in college, my dad mailing back my graduation invite with a single line scrawled, "Pray for you, son." Gary's story was softer at first. He came from a sprawling Irish Catholic clan in Boston, the kind that gathered for raucous Thanksgivings with turkey and too much Jameson. He'd hidden his truth for years, dating women in college to keep the peace, but one family dinner too many. Watching his sister marry her high school sweetheart while he choked down lies pushed him to come clean. His mom hugged him through tears. His dad walked out for a week. But Gary? He was unbreakable, or so I thought. "We're building our own family," he'd say, tracing circles on my chest. "No ghosts allowed." By 2005, we'd scraped together enough for a cozy two-bedroom in Seattle, rainy but progressive, with views of the Sound that made the gray skies bearable. I was freelancing articles for indie mags, Gary climbing the ladder at a tech startup. We talked kids early, the ache of it real even then. Surrogacy was a fortune we didn't have, so adoption it was. The paperwork was a beast. Home studies, interviews, endless forms prying into our lifestyle like we were exhibits in a zoo. Two dads? In Washington state? One social worker had raised an eyebrow, but we powered through, holding hands under the table like it was our secret weapon. Then Nicholas arrived. A tiny bundle from a teenage mom in Tacoma who couldn't keep him, his dark curls and wide blue eyes stealing our breaths the second the agency placed him in Gary's arms. "Hey, little man," Gary whispered, voice thick, as Nicholas gripped his finger like it was the only anchor in the storm. We named him after Gary's grandfather, the one who'd taught him to fish on Cape Cod summers. That first year was magic, sleepless nights blending into dawn feedings, Gary's lullabies in that gravelly baritone, me pacing the living room with storybooks I'd scribble on the fly. We were us against the world, or so it seemed. But cracks show in the quiet moments. Gary started pulling away after Nicholas turned 2, late nights at the office stretching into dawn, coming home with whiskey on his breath and excuses about deadlines. "It's just stress, babe," he'd murmur, kissing my forehead like I was a kid who'd skinned a knee. I believed him because what else could I do? Love like ours was rare, fierce, unyielding, and I wasn't about to let doubt poison it. We'd host barbecues for our little queer found family. Sarah, the lesbian lawyer down the hall who'd officiate our commitment ceremony. Mike, Gary's old college buddy who'd moved west and brought his husband and their adopted daughter. Laughter echoing off our backyard fence, Nicholas toddling between legs, chasing bubbles into the salmonberry bushes. It felt like we'd cracked the code to normalcy, thumbing our noses at the bigots who picketed adoption agencies. Nicholas was our son. By 5, he was all questions and boundless energy, building Lego empires on the kitchen floor while I typed away at my laptop. "Daddy Alex, why's the sky blue?" he'd ask, climbing into my lap, his sticky fingers leaving jam prints on my shirt. I'd spin tales of light bending like magic tricks, watching his eyes widen. Gary was the fun one, tossing him in the air until squeals filled the house, teaching him to kick a soccer ball in Discovery Park, their laughter carrying on the salt wind. But there were nights I'd find Gary in Nicholas's room, just staring at him in the crib, a shadow crossing his face like he'd seen a ghost. "Everything okay?" I'd whisper from the doorway. "Yeah, just. He looks so much like my brother did," he'd say, forcing a smile. His brother Timmy, gone too young to leukemia when Gary was 12, the loss that had hardened him, made him fight for every scrap of joy. We moved to San Francisco when Nicholas was 8, chasing Gary's promotion at a bigger firm. The city embraced us like an old friend, rainbow flags fluttering from every pole, pride parades that shut down the streets in a riot of glitter and bass. Nicholas thrived at his new school in the Castro, making friends with kids from every corner of the globe, Thai adoptees, trans siblings, the works. He was artistic like Gary, sketching fantastical beasts in his notebooks, but with my love for words, devouring Harry Potter under the covers with a flashlight. "You two made me brave," he'd say during family movie nights, curled between us on the couch, popcorn kernels crunching underfoot. Brave. God, if only we'd known what that word would cost us. The first real storm hit when Nicholas was 12. A bully at school, some kid whose dad ranted on talk radio about family values, called him a fag baby after overhearing him talk about his dad's. Nicholas came home with a split lip and eyes like shattered glass, backpack thudding to the floor as he bolted to his room. Gary lost it. He stormed the principal's office the next day, voice booming through the halls like thunder, demanding the kid's expulsion. "My son is not a punchline," he roared, while I held Nicholas in the car, stroking his hair and murmuring that words were just noise, actions were truth. The school suspended the bully, but the damage lingered. Nicholas withdrew, sketching less, questioning more. "Am I like you guys?" he'd ask one night, voice small over dinner, fish tacos from the taqueria down the block. Gary and I exchanged glances, hearts swelling. "If you are, kiddo, we'll love you twice as hard," I said. Gary nodded, squeezing his hand. "You're you. That's enough." But secrets have a way of festering, don't they? Gary's late nights turned into full weekends away on business, his phone buzzing with texts he angled away from me. I'd catch him in the garage, staring at old photo albums from Boston, fingers tracing faces I barely recognized. "Remember that girl from college? Lisa?" he'd mention offhand once, like it was nothing. I didn't press. We all have skeletons. Mine was the novel I'd abandoned, pages gathering dust in a drawer, a reminder of dreams deferred for this life we'd built. Nicholas noticed too, though kids always do. "Is Daddy Gary mad at us?" he'd whisper during our park walks, kicking pebbles along the Embarcadero. "Nah, bud. Grown-ups just get tangled sometimes." I'd ruffle his hair, buying ice cream cones from the vendor with the salty beard, pretending the world was still whole. By 16, Nicholas was a force, tall and lean, with Gary's jawline and my freckles, captaining the debate team and volunteering at the local LGBTQ center. He dated a girl for a bit, awkward hand-holding at the arcade, but it fizzled gentle, no drama. Gary and I, we were coasting, reigniting sparks with date nights at Mission to Carious, slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane records. "I love you more every year," Gary murmured one anniversary, his breath warm against my neck as foghorns wailed from the bay. I believed it, clung to it like a prayer. Then came the summer he turned 18. Graduation loomed, cap and gown fittings at school, college acceptances piling up. UCLA for film studies, his sketches evolving into short scripts about misfit families finding their way. We threw a party in our backyard, string lights twinkling like stars, neighbors grilling veggie burgers, and belting karaoke. Nicholas hugged us tight that night, his voice muffled in my shoulder. "Thanks for everything, Dads. I gotta tell you something soon." His eyes held a storm I couldn't name, but joy edged it, so I let it be. The truth dropped like a bomb 2 weeks later, on a sweltering July afternoon. I'd come home early from a pitch meeting, arms full of groceries for dinner, Gary's favorite, lobster rolls from the ferry market. The house was too quiet, no hum of Nicholas's video games or Gary's podcast in the den. I found them in the living room, facing off like gladiators in an ancient arena. Nicholas, red-faced and trembling, clutched a faded envelope, its edges worn like it had been carried for years. Gary stood frozen, color drained, hands clenched at his sides. "You lied to me," Nicholas shouted, voice breaking on the edge of manhood. "All this time, I'm not adopted. I'm yours, your blood, and you let me think I was. Nothing." Gary's head snapped up, eyes locking on mine as I dropped the bags, milk spilling across the hardwood like tears. "Alex, it's not," he started, but Nicholas cut him off, thrusting the envelope at me. Inside, A birth certificate, yellowed and official, listing Gary's name under father, a woman named Lisa under mother. Dated 1990, 16 years before we signed those adoption papers. The room spun. Gary. My voice was a whisper, a plea. He sank onto the couch, head in hands. The man I'd built a life with crumbling before me. I was going to tell you. Both of you. After college, when things were stable. Nicholas laughed, bitter and broken, pacing like a caged wolf. Stable? You hid me like a dirty secret. Mom. Lisa. She died when I was 6 months old, overdosed, and you. You gave me up? To yourself? Gary's story poured out then, jagged and unrelenting, the kind of confession that reshapes everything. Back in Boston, pre-me, pre-coming out, Gary had been engaged to Lisa, a sweet girl from his parish, both of them young and scared, fumbling through expectations. The pregnancy was a panic, a shotgun wedding his family pushed. But when Nicholas, then baby Timmy, named after his lost brother, arrived, Gary knew the truth. He couldn't love her, couldn't play straight forever. Lisa spiraled after the birth, pills to numb the pain, and one night, she was gone. Gary, 22 and shattered, handed the baby to his sister with a plea. Find him a good home, far from the family that would crush him with their help. His sister placed him through channels, anonymous, until Gary, years later in Seattle with me, saw the file and recognized those curls, those eyes. He pushed for us to adopt, never telling me, terrified I'd see him as the fraud he felt he was, a man who'd abandoned his own flesh to chase authenticity. Why? I choked out, kneeling before him, the man who'd held me through my darkest nights. We could have handled it together. Because I was ashamed, he admitted, tears carving tracks down his stubbled cheeks. Ashamed of the boy I was, the dad I failed to be. You deserved better than my mess. Nicholas bolted then, doors slamming like a gunshot, tires screeching as he peeled out in his beat-up Civic. I chased him into the dusk, phone buzzing with ignored calls from Sarah, from Mike. He ended up at Baker Beach, our spot, the one where we'd scattered wildflower seeds after his first heartbreak, the ocean of vast, indifferent witness. I found him there, shoes kicked off, toes digging into the cold sand, staring at the Golden Gate Bridge silhouetted against the dying light. Dad, he said when I sat beside him, the word a lifeline, not specifying which, just Dad. I'm gay too, been knowing for years. And now this. It feels like I was never real. The confession hit like a wave, pulling me under, but I surfaced with arms around him, holding tight as sobs racked us both. You're the realest thing we've got, Nick. Gay, straight, whatever, you're ours. Always were. We talked till stars pricked the sky, his story spilling. The crushes on debate teammates, the fear of doubling down on our queer family curse, the envelope he'd found months ago in Gary's locked desk drawer while hunting for birthday cash. He'd confronted Gary alone that morning, rage boiling over before he could think. I thought coming out would be the hard part, he admitted, voice hoarse. Not this. Gary arrived an hour later, silhouette trudging through the surf, jacket slung over his shoulder. He dropped to his knees in the sand, not touching, just waiting. I'm sorry, he said, over and over, a litany to the gods of forgiveness. Nicholas watched him, eyes stormy, then stood, brushing grit from his jeans. You don't get to apologize yet. But, don't disappear again. I can't lose you twice. The drive home was silent, the city lights blurring through rain-streaked windows, a fragile truce holding us together. Inside, we collapsed into the kitchen, brewing tea with shaking hands. Chamomile, the kind Gary swore fixed everything. Words failed at first, so we sat in the wreckage, passing the mug like a peace pipe. I should have trusted you, Gary finally said to me, his hand finding mine across the table, rough from years of sketching. Both of you, my boys. Nicholas leaned against the fridge, arms crossed, but his shoulders eased. It hurts. Like, bone deep. But, I get why. Kinda. The world's not kind to guys like us starting out. That night marked the unraveling and the rebuild. Nicholas dove into therapy, group sessions at the center, journaling his scripts into catharsis. He started dating Ethan, a soft-spoken barista with a lip ring and a poetry zine. Their first kiss under the same string lights from the party, tentative and sweet. Watching them from the porch, hands intertwined like roots, Gary squeezed my knee. Look at him go. Our brave kid. But betrayal's shadow lingered. I moved to the guest room for a spell, needing space to breathe, to rewrite the narrative in my head. Nights alone, I'd wander the Castro, neon signs buzzing like accusations, nursing a beer at the corner dive where drag queens held court. Honey, love's a battlefield, one told me, fanning herself with a sequined fan. But you fight for the good ones. I did fight. Date nights turned raw, arguments in coffee shops spilling over bagels and black brew. You made me a liar in my own home, I'd accuse, voice low to not shatter the peace. Gary took it, nodding, then countering with, I was scared you'd leave if you knew the full me, the broken parts. The climax crashed in August at Pride. We'd planned to march as a family, signs hoisted high. Love wins, one truth at a time. Nicholas led, arm linked with Ethan's, chanting with the throng down Market Street. Gary and I trailed, hands brushing, the crowd a pulsing heartbeat of flags and feathers. Then, midway through, a counter-protester shoved through, red-faced, bullhorn blaring Bible verses, spit flying as he jabbed a finger at Nicholas. Abominations raising abominations. Repent. Time slowed. Nicholas froze, color draining, Ethan's grip tightening. Gary surged forward, a roar building in his chest, but I yanked him back, old instincts from playground scraps. Not like this, I hissed. But Nicholas didn't flinch. He stepped up, voice steady as steel. Hey man, I get it, you're scared. But this, he gestured to us, to the Rainbow River flowing around. This is family, real as it gets. The guy faltered, bullhorn drooping, and slunk away as cheers erupted. But in the aftermath, under a shady oak off the parade route, Nicholas turned to Gary, eyes fierce. That could have been you, Dad. Back then, scared and shoving. But you chose different. Chose us. Gary broke then, fully, sobbing into Nicholas's shoulder, apologies mingling with gratitude. I joined, our huddle a knot of limbs and salt water, the city thumping on without us. I love you, Gary gasped to me later, as fireworks cracked over the bay, painting his face in bursts of color. The whole messy truth. Fall brought healing's slow burn. Nicholas headed to UCLA in September, dorm packed with posters of indie films and that birth certificate, now framed like a scar turned talisman. It's part of me, he said at the airport, hugging us fierce. But not all. Ethan visited weekends, their calls lighting up our empty nest. Gary and I, we renewed vows in that same Seattle chapel, rain pattering soft, Nicholas officiating via Zoom from his sunny quad. In the face of secrets and storms, he intoned, grinning, love endures. It's been years now, Nicholas directing his first short at 25, a tale of hidden fathers and sons finding light. Gary's sketches fill galleries, raw portraits of us three against fractured backdrops. And me? I finished that novel, pages bound with our story woven in, a testament to Gamble's one. We sit on the porch some evenings, the fog rolling in like an old friend, glasses clinking to the life we clawed back. Secrets shatter, sure, but from the shards, something truer emerges. Family isn't blood or vows. It's the choice to stay, through the rage and the rain, building bridges where walls once stood. Not every story ends in tidy bows. Gary's family. Some came around, tentative Thanksgivings with uneasy grace. Others never did, ghosts we learned to let fade. Nicholas's coming out? It rippled, old friends drifting, new ones blooming bold. But in the quiet, when the world's noise dims, I look at them, my husband sketching by lamplight, my son FaceTiming from sets alive with possibility. And no, we shocked ourselves most, discovering love's depth in the breaking. The months after Pride felt like walking on eggshells glazed with honey, sweet, but one wrong step and crunch. Nicholas's freshman year flew by in a blur of care packages, granola bars and Gary's doodles tucked in socks, and midnight calls about syllabus stress or Ethan's latest poem. He's writing about us, dads. Nick laughed once, voice crackling over the line from Westwood. The queer constellation or something. Total sap. Gary and I would huddle on speaker, trading dad jokes until his yawns betrayed him. But hanging up left a hollow, the house echoing with absence, forcing us to face the fractures we'd papered over. Therapy became our ritual, Couple sessions with a no-nonsense shrink named Rivera, her office overlooking the Presidio's eucalyptus groves. Betrayal isn't a switch you flip off, she'd say, her pen tapping like a metronome. It's a wound that scars. Gary owned his part, week after week, dissecting the terror that had chained him silent. I thought if you knew, you'd see the coward, not the man. He confessed one session, his knee pressed to mine under the coffee table. I'd nod, throat tight, countering with my own ghosts. The fear that loving him meant losing myself again, like I'd lost chunks of my youth to family rejection. Rivera pushed us deeper, homework assignments like write the unsaid letter, which we burned in the backyard fire pit, ashes swirling into the night like released sins. Nicholas came home for winter break, Ethan in tow, a lanky kid with tousled curls and a laugh like wind chimes, majoring in lit at Berkeley. They were adorable in that puppy love way, stealing kisses over breakfast burritos, debating Scorsese films till dawn. But under the joy, tension simmered. Nick cornered Gary one evening in the garage, amid half-finished canvases and tool benches. I eavesdropped from the kitchen, dish towel twisted in my fists. I forgave you, Dad. Mostly. But what about her? Lisa, you ever think about what she would have wanted? Gary's voice, muffled through the door. Every damn day, kid. She was kind. Too kind for the mess we made. Wanted you to have more than we could give. A pause, heavy as fog. I visit her grave when I'm back east. Leave daisies. Tell her you're killing it. Silence stretched, then Nicholas's exhale. Bring me next time. I need to meet her somehow. The door creaked open after, father and son emerging with red eyes but linked arms, a bridge mended in the half-light. My own reckoning came quieter in the novel's revisions. I'd resurrected it that fall, fingers flying over keys in coffee shops where baristas knew my order. Oat milk latte, extra foam. The manuscript poured out, a queer dad unraveling his partner's lie, their son a mirror to buried shames. But weaving in the love, the stolen glances across crowded rooms, the way Gary's hand fit mine like a missing puzzle, made it breathe. I dedicated it to them. For the men who taught me truth's sharp edges cut to let the light in. When the agent called with a deal, mid-list press, but a real advance. I wept in the shower, water masking the sobs. Gary finding me there and holding me till the hot ran cold. Spring brought visitors. Gary's sister Maureen, flying in from Boston with her husband and teenage twins, the first family olive branch in years. She'd been the one to place Nicholas originally. Her role in the secret of guilt she'd carried like a stone. Dinner was a minefield. Our dining table groaning under roast chicken and kale salad, conversation tiptoeing around landmines. The twins, oblivious teens glued to TikTok, peppered Nick with questions about LA parties. Maureen, eyes like Gary's but softer, reached for my hand midway through. I pushed him to tell you sooner, she murmured while clearing plates. Families for leaning, not hiding. Later, over poured on the deck, she and Gary reminisced about Cape Cod summers, Timmy's ghost hovering gentle, Nicholas listening rapt, piecing his heritage like a mosaic. But not all bridges held. My folks, those Indiana ghosts, sent a card for Nick's birthday, and signed but postmarked Terre Haute, a Bible verse on prodigal sons that landed like a slap. I burned it in the sink, flames licking blue, Gary wrapping me from behind. Their loss, he growled, chin on my shoulder. We've got our prodigal, and he's a goddamn star. Nicholas, overhearing from the hall, hugged us both. Screw him. We've got Ethan's mom's potato salad recipe now. That's family. Summer swelled with possibility. Nicholas interned on an indie set in the valley, crashing with Ethan in a shoebox apartment off Sunset. Their dates at Griffith Observatory stargazing till curfew. Gary and I escaped for a long weekend in Big Sur, Highway 1 winding like a lover's spine, cliffs plunging to turquoise sea. We hiked the Pfeiffer Trail, hands clasped over redwood's roots, stopping at Bixby Bridge for a picnic of cheese and figs. Remember Seattle? Gary asked, leaning against the railing, wind whipping his hair. That rain, that chapel. I'd do it again, mess and all. I traced his knuckles, scarred from a childhood bike crash. Even the hiding. He pulled me close, salt air filling our lungs. Especially that. It led here, to you, to him. We made love that night in a cliffside cabin, slow and reverent. The ocean's roar our symphony, reaffirming vows in whispers and touches. Dawn found us tangled in sheets, coffee steaming on the porch, the world vast and kind again. Yet shadows crept. Nicholas called mid-internship, voice edged with panic. Ethan and I, we had a fight. Big one. Turns out, Ethan's ex, a brooding sculptor from Portland, had shown up unannounced, stirring jealousy like a hornet's nest. Words flew, accusations of holding back because of family drama, and suddenly, their constellation dimmed. Nick drove home unannounced, showing up at midnight with a duffel and hollow eyes. I told him about the adoption, the real story. He said it was too much baggage. Like I'm a suitcase he can leave at the station. Gary brewed cocoa, the three of us on the couch like old times, Nicholas's head in my lap. Baggage makes the trip interesting, I said, stroking his hair. Anyone worth keeping stays for the load. He nodded, but the hurt lingered, manifesting in late-night script revisions, characters wrestling hidden pasts. Ethan apologized a week later, flowers and a handwritten poem delivered to our door, all metaphors of anchors and storms. They reconciled at the center's open mic, Nick reading a monologue about fractured truths, Ethan's applause the loudest. He's in, Nick texted, emoji hearts exploding. But the scare planted seeds of doubt, making him cling tighter, question deeper. Fall semester loomed, but before UCLA swallowed him again, we road-tripped to Yosemite. Our annual pilgrimage, granite monoliths a testament to endurance. Half-Dome hike kicked our asses, lungs burning on switchbacks, but summiting brought catharsis. Views endless, wind stripping away pretense. At Glacier Point, Gary pulled out a small box, not rings, but matching pendants, silver waves etched with truth. One for each of us. So we remember, he said, clasping mine around my neck. Then Nick's, our hug a circle against the void. Back home, unpacking sweatshirts and trail mix, Nicholas lingered in the kitchen, fiddling with his pendant. I came out thinking it'd shatter us. But it mended something. His smile was tentative, a bridge half-built. Gary ruffled his hair. Shatter to shine, kid. That's the gay way. As leaves turned gold in Golden Gate Park, I watched them toss a frisbee, laughter carrying on the breeze, and felt the scar tissue stretch, stronger, if tender. Love's not a straight line. It's a scribble, messy and true, leading home. Sophomore year hit like a freight train. Nicholas juggling film classes and a campus queer alliance. His scripts now laced with autofiction, thinly veiled tales of concealed paternities and starlit confessions. Ethan thrived too, his zine going viral on Tumblr, prints selling at Berkeley flea markets. They visited often, commandeering our guest room for study sessions that dissolved into board games and bad horror flicks, the house alive with their easy chaos. Gary and I soaked it in, but privately, the weight pressed. My novel's pub date loomed, a launch party at a Castro bookstore, nerves jangling like loose change. The reading was a triumph. Friends crammed in, wine flowing, my voice steady as I read the dedication aloud. Gary's eyes misty in the front row. Nicholas stood afterward, mic in hand. Dad Alex wrote us into forever. Here's to the plot twists. Applause thundered, but later, over cake at home, he pulled me aside. It's good, Dad. Real good. But there's more story, right? Lisa sighed. The request blindsided me, but Gary nodded solemn. Road trip east, then. Boston in spring. We planned it meticulous. Flights booked, Maureen's couch commandeered, a detour to Terre Haute for my ghosts if I dared. Nicholas dove into research, genealogy sites, and old emails from his aunt, piecing Lisa's portrait. A painter who'd buskied in Harvard Square, her overdose not just pills, but a lifetime of shoulds crushing her spirit. Gary opened up more on those prep nights, over takeout faux steaming on the coffee table. She laughed like bells. He'd say, chopsticks paused. But the engagement? It was a cage for both of us. I proposed thinking it'd fix me, straighten the bend. Nicholas listened, journal open, sketching her from descriptions. Wild hair, eyes like stormy seas. You think she'd like me? He'd ask, vulnerable in a way that pierced. Love you, Gary corrected, fierce. Proud as hell. The flight to Logan was turbulent, mirroring our insides. Nicholas white-knuckled beside me, Gary across the aisle cracking dad jokes about peanuts. Maureen met us at baggage, hugs fierce, her twins now lanky teens geeking over Nick's film clips on her phone. Boston bloomed gentle, cherry blossoms dusting the common. But the gravesite waited north, in a quiet suburb cemetery where headstones whispered of lives half-lived. Lisa's marker was simple, granite etched with doves, wildflowers pushing through cracks. We stood in a half-circle, wind rustling oaks, Gary placing daisies first, then Nicholas, kneeling to trace her name. "Hi, Mom," he said, voice steady. "Took me a while. But I'm here. Got two dads who fight like hell for me. Hope that's okay." Tears fell unashamed. Ethan's poem clutched in his pocket like talisman. He'd stayed west, exams chaining him, but sent words. Roots reach through stone. Bloom where you're planted. Gary spoke next, confession raw. "I failed you, Lise. But he's gold. Our gold." I hung back, hand on Nick's shoulder, my own losses bubbling. Indiana plains calling faint, a prodigal's echo. No visit for me. Some bridges burned best cold. We lingered till dusk, sharing stories Maureen brought. Lisa's canvases in storage, vibrant abstracts of city lights and shadowed hearts. Nicholas claimed one, a swirl of blues. "For the set," he said. "Light in the dark." Back in the city, Maureen's Thanksgiving was a bomb. Extended clan subdued but present, Gary's dad clapping Nick's back awkward. "Heard you're making movies, son. Send one my way." No sermons, just turkey dry as regret and pie sweet as truce. Nicholas thrived, charming cousins with improv bits, but one night, post-feast, he and Gary vanished to the porch, silhouettes against snow-dusted railings. I watched from the window, Maureen's hand on my arm. "Boys and their burdens," she sighed. "He'll carry 'em lighter now." Whatever passed their forged steel. On the flight home, Nicholas slept head on Gary's shoulder, a piece I'd not seen since childhood. But home cracked it open again. A letter from the agency, forwarded late, detailing Lisa's final days. Gary's signature on relinquishment papers, dated stark. Nick found it in the mail pile, reading alone in his old room, face ashen when we knocked. "It's not blame," he said, waving us in, the letter trembling. "Just final, like closing a book I never read." We talked till the ferry horn wailed midnight. Ethan on video from a dorm party, his voice a steady anchor. "Babe, chapters and so new ones start." But doubt crept into their calls after. Ethan's ex circling back, friendly coffees turning flirty, Nick's texts laced with worry. "Am I enough?" The fracture widened over Christmas break. Ethan visited, tension thick as tinsel, snapped at Nick over nothing, a forgotten anniversary of their first date. "You're always digging up graves," he accused during a heated kitchen spat, Gary and I pretending deafness in the den. Nicholas fired back. "And you're running from mine." Doors slammed. Ethan stormed to a hotel, Nick crashing on the couch, gutted. I sat with him at 3 a.m., cocoa cooling untouched. "Love's not perfect, kid. It's work." He nodded, but eyes distant. "What if I'm too broken?" The gay kid with the secret dad, Baggage City. "You're a story worth telling," I said, echoing my dedication. Twists and all. Ethan returned sheepish next day, poem in hand, but the damage lingered. A counseling pact, weekly check-ins to unpack the weight. Nicholas leaned on the alliance, mentoring freshmen with his own coming-out saga, turning pain to purpose. Gary and I, we hiked the headlands, waves crashing below like applause, recommitting in the salt sting. "No more half-truths," he vowed, pendant glinting. Spring semester brought blooms. Nick short-screened at a campus fest, echoes, a father-son reconciliation under bridge lights, audience weeping. Ethan directed the sound, their credit crawl a quiet together. But graduation loomed senior year fast, post-college plans a whirlwind. Nick eyeing grad film at USC, Ethan MFA East. Distance loomed, a new ghost. The real storm brewed summer 15, at a family wedding. Sarah's, our lawyer friend tying the knot in Napa Vineyards, fairy lights, and Chardonnay haze. Nicholas brought Ethan, dapper in linen suits, but midway through toasts, Ethan's ex appeared, uninvited, drunk, cornering Nick by the dessert table. "You think you can handle him? With your daddy drama?" Slurs slithered out, freak family, drawing stares. Gary clocked it first, striding over like a freight train, Voice low thunder. Back off, pal. Or I make sure you do. Security escorted the guy out, but the venom seeped. Nick bolting to the vines. Ethan trailing apologetic. I found them arguing whispers. Ethan's face crumpling. I can't keep fighting my past for yours. The breakup shattered slow, texts turning terse, visits canceled, Nick's scripts darkening with abandoned lovers. He threw himself into work, a production assistant gig on a Netflix pilot, long hours blurring days. Gary and I tiptoed, offering space but aching, movie nights solo, his spot on the couch a void. One night, post-shift, Nick stumbled home reeking of craft services and despair, collapsing at the table. I'm the problem, he slurred, tears hot. Too much. Always too much. Gary pulled him up, fierce. You're everything, son. The best we ever made. I brewed coffee, the three of us mapping a plan, therapy solo, a solo trip to process Lisa's art show Maureen mailed. Healing crept in autumn leaves. Nick dating casual, a classmate with easy smiles, no exes haunting. Ethan? They parted friends, his eastbound dreams pulling. Gary's birthday brought levity. A surprise party at the pier, crab pot steaming, Nick toasting with a film reel gag. To the dad who hid, and then showed up. Love you. As winter bit, I revised my sequel. Deeper dives into forgiveness's grit, and felt the circle widen, scars fading to stories. Family's a film reel. Cuts sharp, but the montage? Magic. Senior year dawned crisp, Nicholas reborn in focus. Captain of the Film Society, his thesis a featurette on queer legacies, cameos from us graying dads. The ex's shadow faded, new flames flickering. Jordan, a sound engineer with a motorcycle and no baggage, revving up adventures to Joshua Tree under star-pricked skies. He's chill. Nick confided over Thanksgiving turkey, eyes bright. Sees me, not the script. Gary grilled him subtle at pickup basketball, sweat and trash talk bonding. Emerging with a nod, kids solid. My novel hit shelves nationwide. Readings from Seattle to Soho. Fans queuing for signatures with their own tales of hidden loves. One night in Chicago, a burly dad clutched my book. My Boy's Trans. Came out last year. This gives me words. Gary tagged along when he could. Our hotel room's a roadie romance. Hands exploring maps of each other's familiar terrain. Proud of you, he'd murmur post-reading, over room service burgers. My wordsmith. But pride's flip side is peril. Nicholas's thesis, shoot hit snags. Funding dried. Cast flaked. Piling stress like cordwood. Jordan supported steady. But one cast party too many. Libations flowing, and whispers reached us. Jordan seen cozy with a grip. Nick oblivious till a concerned text from a crewmate. He confronted gentle. Over diner fries at 2 a.m. Jordan crumbling. It was nothing. Just lonely while you're buried in edits. Not nothing. Nick ended it clean but cracked, channeling fury into final cuts, the film emerging fiercer. A son uncovering his father's forgery, reconciliation forged in firelight. Premiere packed the campus theater, Jordan in the back row clapping polite, Ethan zooming cheers from NYU. Post-screening Q&A, Nick fielded raw. The truth? It hurts like hell, but it's the only plot worth directing. Applause roared. Gary squeezed my hand, tears unashamed. Graduation weekend was our pinnacle. Caps airborne in the quad, diplomas gripped like talismans, Jordan's ghost just an ache. We hosted a bash back home, Castro house bursting, Sarah DJing disco anthems, Mike's daughter now a tween dancing wild. Nicholas, gowned and grinning, pulled us aside mid-toast. Dads, I'm applying USC. But after? New York. With the film collective there. The city of our youth. Full circle, hearts swelling and sinking simultaneous. Gary hugged him thunderous. Go conquer, kid. We'll visit. Subway sandwiches on me. I nodded, throat tight, whispering, build your empire. We've got the home fires. Ethan crashed the after-party via video, toasting from a Brooklyn dive, to empires and encores. No rekindle, but closure sweet, friends now, orbits aligned. Post-grad haze settled. Nick crashing our couch for a month. Job hunting between script polishes, Jordan a memory boxed with undergrad. He landed a PA gig on a HBO pilot, eastbound ticket punched, but before Wheels Up, the big reveal. our family's coda. It came casual, overpacking pizza on the living room floor, boxes strewn like confetti. So, Nick started, sauce on chin. That birth certificate? Turns out there's more. Gary and I froze, forks midair. He dug deeper. Ancestry tests, Maureen's attic dives, uncovering not just Lisa's line, but a half-sister. Younger, by her second marriage post-Gary, now 22, a barista in Portland with his curls and her laugh. She's known about me since she was 10. Mom, Lisa, left letters. The shock rippled. Another branch, another secret layered. Gary paled. I never knew. After her, I cut ties clean. Nicholas grinned, fierce. Not cutting now. We're meeting next month. Family Reunion 2.0. Joy crashed over us like waves. Texts flying to Maureen. Plans hatching for a neutral ground cafe. But under it, Gary's confession, quiet. I hid to protect. But protections change sometimes. I kissed his temple. And now? We unchain. Nick's departure train chugged from Embarcadero, us waving from the platform. His window grin a beacon. New York swallowed him gentle. Texts of dive bar auditions, subway serenades. His half-sis meet? Magic, per the call. Coffee turning to tears. Hugs. Promises of holidays blended. She's cool, dads. Got mom's art bug. Tattoos of abstracts. Years blurred after. Nick's first feature at Sundance. Standing ovations and deals. Jordan a footnote in credits. Collaborator, not lover. A steady beau emerged. Rico, a cinematographer with Puerto Rican fire and steady hands. Their engagement under the same bridge lights from his script. Ring simple, silver wave. Gary and I walked him down the aisle in a Hudson Valley barn. Vows echoing our own. Through secrets and shines. My sequel sold, tours a whirlwind, but home anchored. Gary's gallery shows, portraits of us evolving. Young fire to silver wisdom. Holidays swelled. Maureen's twins off to college, Lisa's daughter, now Aunt Ellie, joining our table, her laughter bells indeed. My folks. A Christmas card arrived once, postmarked same, verse softer. Thinking of you. No reply, but I framed it, a nod to ghosts at peace. Nicholas's kid arrived via surrogate at 30, tiny Theo, curls wild, eyes blue as bays. We flew east, Gary cradling him first, tears tracing. Hey, grandson. No secrets here. Nick, arm around Rico, nodded. Just stories. The good kind. Now porch swings creak under us. Foghorns our lullaby. Theo toddling between legs. Love's gamble? We won big. Shocks to sympathies. Betrayals to bonds unbreakable. In America's sprawl, from rainy coasts to canyon dreams, we carved our queer corner. Raw, real, radiant. And if the rain hammers again, we'll dance in it, knowing the sun follows.